Hello and welcome to episode 74 of the Your Way podcast. So today I want to do a deep dive into emotions because one of the things that I am seeing across the board at the moment is that we are still judging emotions as good and bad. And there is still this perception that if we do enough healing work, if we take ourselves to the depths, if we just become evolved and high vibe enough, then we don't ever have to feel sad, lonely, grief, upset again. And that it's a problem if we do. It's a problem if these emotions come up again. And I think this is one of the big issues with personal development. It kind of reinforces that childhood belief of don't be upset, don't be angry, don't be too much. And so you can go into these spaces that ostensibly are framed of like helping you to heal and be all of who you are. But then what happens is this reinforcement of, oh, but you can't feel that. Don't do that. It's not this way. That's not okay. This is how you have to be. Or you're somehow doing it wrong. Manifestation, another great example. You have to be high vibe. You have to be in this particular space in order to achieve things in your life. And what this is doing is, number one, it is again reinforcing that good girl, good boy patterning of like, we have to be good, we have to be happy, we have to be palatable all of the time. But it is continually bypassing and pushing down a large part of who you are and what makes us human, right? Because human beings have a whole range of emotions. Like if you work in the personal development world, you've probably seen those feelings wheels, the emotions wheels that we can use with our clients so that they can start to see all of the different emotions. So it's not like, how do you feel? Good. How do you feel? Bad. Right. So they can start to tap into all of that. You don't get two versions of the feeling wheel. It's not like the pre-healed, pre-evolved version of the healing wheel, of the feeling wheel, sorry. And then the post one, no, the feeling wheel is the feeling wheel because they are all the feelings that we are designed to experience as humans. So, how do we get to a place where we are judging our emotions? We are trying to limit what we are able to feel. And I think often this does start from a very young age. You know, our parents probably, particularly if you're sort of my generation and older, they didn't have the emotional capacity and the regulation to be able to hold their feelings. And so they sure as shit couldn't hold ours. So when we became upset or angry or excited, it was too much for them. And so we learned very quickly that we needed to shut that shit down. And then you go to school, you're in class, you're expected to be quiet, to behave, to be good, because nice little boys and girls, they don't get angry, they don't get upset, they blend in, they behave. And so all of this stuff reinforces, then you go into the corporate world, again, the same deal. I watched a brilliant video recently, and it was a guy who had worked in kind of entertainment, Broadway, he's an actor, I think, and he'd gone to some corporate event. He was like, have I got this right? He's like, you go into a corporate job and it's very clear that you're not allowed to be all of who you are. But there might come a point in time where you're senior enough that you can actually finally let certain parts of your personality be seen, but only in certain contexts. He was like, this is madness. And it is madness, but it's also the world that we live in. And so I want to talk about this today because I want to shift that paradigm away from if I'm doing this right, if I'm healed enough, if I am good enough, then I'm going to feel only joy, happiness, bliss, pleasure, excitement. And I'm not going to feel grief or sadness or anger or shame or guilt because this is requiring you within your body, within your system, within your wholeness, are many facets and many layers. And my view, which you can take or leave, is that the aim is to integrate all of that. So it's to allow all of it. It is to make peace with all of it. And it's to expand your capacity to feel all of the emotions when they come up without judging them. And this requires a process, right? Because if you think back to being little and all of those emotions that you had to suppress, all of that stuff is now stored in your body. And so at some point, in order to release it, you're going to have to feel that stuff. And this is the bit that people don't want to do because they think it's going to be overwhelming for them because it was overwhelming for them then. And this is why when we work with people to that place of wholeness, to allow them to integrate all of who they are, we start by building their resources. We help them to build the capacity to feel those emotions. Then we feel them just a little bit at a time, right? It's not some great big thing of like, right, take the lid off, all your childhood trauma, all that stuff, we're looking at it today. Dangerous, right? It's why some of the conscious connected breathwork stuff can be a little bit tricky if all of a sudden all of this stuff gets opened up, but the body hasn't actually got the capacity to hold it, and the practitioner doesn't really know what to do with it once it's there. So if we get to this place where, okay, maybe we accept, okay, maybe there are some emotions that I want to feel, but how do I do it without judging myself? And also, how do I allow the complex mix of emotions? Can I get to a place where maybe I'm deeply grieving? Maybe a family member has died. And my conditioning is I'm only allowed to grieve in a certain way. I need to go, I need to get over it on my own. I need to deal with it. Or I need to collapse. Or the system is like, I can't hold this, I need to collapse. But can we get to this place where you can simultaneously hold the grief, the loss, the responsibility, the things that you are carrying, maybe the anger. We'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. At the same time as holding still your joy, your ambition, your drive, and deeply taking care of yourself. Because when you can learn to do this for yourself, not judging, not making anything good or bad, this is when you start to also build the capacity to do this for another person. If you're here judging yourself every time you don't feel happy, or judging yourself every time another grief thing comes up, or another fear comes up, or another layer of that core wound comes up that you thought you dealt with for the last time, right? If you're then judging yourself for that and shaming yourself for that and making yourself wrong for that, no way are you holding a space for your clients with the non-judgmental compassion and love that they need in order to come back to their place of wholeness. And so this is why we always have to do this work for ourselves first. We master the steps for ourselves first. We bring ourselves into that space of, okay, I can feel, I've got the capacity to feel anything without judging. And then we can do it for others. Now, I want to give a practical example here. And it's through the lens of, and I'll use myself as an example because then we're not getting into any confidentiality issues with clients. But if you think about the work that maybe happens in terms of feeling our emotions and get into these spaces, when you start to grapple with this stuff and you recognize that actually growing up, home wasn't a safe place for your emotions, the full breadth of your emotions. Your emotions weren't welcome there. And a lot of things were suppressed and you adapted. You know, the people pleasers, the perfectionists, the overworkers, most of that stuff stems from what we learned or who we learned we had to be when we were very little. So you start to look at that, you create some awareness of like, oh, I understand now. You know, maybe it wasn't that my parents didn't love me, but whatever was going on for them at the time, they didn't have the capacity. It wasn't that my anger or my sadness or my excitement or my joy was bad or too much. My parents just didn't have the emotional capacity to be around that. And so I learned to push it down, but I didn't learn to push it down because I'm bad. And they didn't require me to push it down because they are bad. They didn't have the capacity. I had to adapt, just like they got to where they were because their parents didn't have the capacity, right? And on and on and on for generations, which is why those of us who have been born to be the cycle breakers are also doing this work, healing back for generations. So you start to do this work. So I remember went to see a therapist when I got signed off from work with stress in 2018. All I wanted when I went to see this therapist was for her to help me to decide whether or not I continue to work in law or not. But she kept wanting to talk about family stuff, and I was not interested. But she persevered. And one day she said to me, she said, "This is not a healthy family dynamic." She was like, "This isn't how it should be." And this started me on this journey of understanding. So I'm at awareness at this point. So if you have done the Art of Embodied Transformation masterclass, you'll know that I talk about the three core practices and the six initiations that we go through to create embodied transformation. If you haven't done that masterclass yet, you can grab it for free. It's available for instant download now, and it will be in the show notes or the comments if you are watching this on social media. Um, but so that awareness, that first thing of, oh, like, so my on the surface, healthy, nice house, food, lack of money scarcity. I mean, there was money scarcity, but there was money there. We know what I mean. Um, might not be that healthy. This codependency that I've got with my dad, which I'll be honest, was like full on enmeshment at this time, and I was 33 then, full on enmeshment. Oh, that's not kind of like how it's meant to be. How I'm meant to be a separate individual, right? All of these things that because it had just been my normal for so long, I hadn't been aware of. So there's this huge increase in awareness. Okay. Now, if I'd have stopped there, I might have understood a little bit more. But I know, because I had to keep going, because this is what I experienced, that that awareness in and of itself wouldn't have been enough to shift how I really felt about myself and my behaviors and the overworking and the people pleasing and the perfectionism and the controls. Right. It was very, 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 very A type. So then you move into kind of that deeper layer of awareness, which I call um, the inner council. So that's like the shadow work. This is the stuff I'm talking about before, the things that we don't want to look at, right? The things we don't want to look at. The shadow work, the parts work, the inner child work. And I recognized that I had this deep, deep belief about myself that I was unlovable. I am unlovable. My mother couldn't love me. I am unlovable. I am fundamentally a bad, wrong, and difficult person. Okay. Now, if I wasn't willing to go and feel that stuff and see that stuff because I just wanted to be perfect, shiny, successful, loyal Louise, I would have never actually got to the crux of what was driving so many of my patterns. Okay. Now, also in doing that work and then layering in some nervous system and trauma resolution work, because this stuff that happens to us as kids, an entire childhood of a lack of emotional regulation can create childhood developmental trauma within us. Okay, doesn't mean we're fundamentally broken. We're not broken. We're not here to be fixed. But we create adaptations on the back of it. Okay. So I can look all of that. I can get awareness of it. But if I try to bypass some of the more uncomfortable things immediately, so often people are like, yes, yes, I understand all of this about my parents, but I understand why they did it. And I forgive them. I'm in a place of forgiveness. It's like, that's lovely, dear. And if you want to get to a place of forgiveness, happy days. I am now in a place with my parents where I love them, I forgive them, I understand them, and I accept them. I am sure as shit not going to tell you that you have to get to that place. But do you know where I went on the way? Well, first of all, I went no contact for nearly 4 years while I worked this stuff through. And I went no contact thinking that I would never have a relationship with them again. Now that turned out not to be the case, but I was down for that. And I went through anger, and I went through sadness, and I went through hate, and I went through rage. So many of my unhappy childhood memories focus around the kitchen that we grew up in. I had a somatic experience where I went into that kitchen and burned that fucker down because I never wanted to have to be in that space again. Didn't actually burn it down, just so we're clear. Like I'm just in a somatic session imagining it. This is not me admitting to arson. But these were all things that I had to go through to alchemize within me. And often when I work with people in family dynamics, we have to separate things into two pillars, right? There's your parents who, yes, you can love and understand and forgive and have compassion for if you want to, right? But then there's also you as the child who had basic needs that were not met. And that child probably felt quite angry about that and quite upset about that at times. And those things got suppressed. And this is where that deeper inner child shadow work, parts work comes in because you learn to suppress that anger and you learn to suppress that sadness. And in its place, you learn to be good and perfect and work hard and be successful and overgive and have no boundaries. And so, in order to release some of this stuff, you have to feel some of this stuff. And it's not bad to feel that stuff. Just like we've also been lied to that if things are too joyful and too blissful, we could better be careful because at some point the other shoe is going to drop. Also a lie. Don't get too big for your boots. Right, so there's all of these things that come in, but when we are in this place of, I just want to feel happy and I just want to feel good because this is how I'm meant to feel. Do you see how much richness that you are missing? So now I'm in a place where I don't really have those feelings towards my parents anymore. It still comes up. It still comes up when I'm like the next expansion or the next thing that I'm looking to move into. There will still be that part of me, that next layer of, but maybe you actually are bad and wrong and fundamentally a bad person. Or that next layer of, well, no one's going to want to do this because your own mother couldn't love you. She could, but that's how I felt as a child. Oh, you better work hard. You better give it all you've got because if you don't give it all you've got, you're going to fail. You're going to fail. You need to work harder. That's my dad's voice. And they still show up. They still show up. But can I allow them? And this is the point. Rather than be like, oh my God, I'm here again. I failed. I don't feel good all the time. It's like, no, I'm going into the next layer. I'm going to this next space of expansion. This certification, I am basically telling coaches, breathwork providers, yoga teachers, facilitators, that if they aren't able to hold someone at the level of mind, body, and soul, if they can't help people with awareness, but at that level, deeper level of awareness, if they can't help people to get into their shadow and the dark parts, because they haven't done it themselves. In fact, they can't help people to be in their bodies and in their nervous systems and to connect into their souls, then they're basically offering a substandard service. You better fucking believe that's brought some stuff up for me. Because I learned that you don't challenge people. Because if you challenge people, you get pinned down and have your mouth washed out with soap. So, of course, it brought more stuff up. But it's like, but can I see that and move through it? So then I have the capacity to come and say this without collapsing, without going back, right? So the goal is not feel good all the time. The goal is to feel, to feel. And you know what? When you learn to feel and hold any emotion, they don't sit with you forever. You're not going to go into spirals and days. You're going to connect into the emotion. You're going to feel the emotion. You're going to process the emotion. You are going to learn to tend to that younger part of you, that protective part. You're going to thank them for all of the ways that they helped you get to here. And you're going to help them to go off and do a different role now that doesn't look like The overgiving, the overworking, the people pleasing, the perfectionism, the hiding, right? And we do this by going through those 6 initiations ourselves first. Because it's only when we've done this that we then have the capacity to be with another person to help them to return to wholeness, which is the whole point. So if this has resonated and you haven't downloaded the free masterclass yet, The Art of Embodied Transformation, you're going to love it. It's 90 minutes, instant access. There's no like time limit on when you can watch it or how often you can watch it. But why not start now? And if you already know that you feel called to do this work more deeply with other people and yourself, because you recognize that the way that you are holding space right now, there is a calling for you to do it with more depth, with more capacity. Because also, we don't want to be doing this work with clients and taking it all on and it draining us. We didn't leave corporate with burnout to become coaches with burnout, right? So, if you want to learn all of these skills, I want to invite you to join the Embodied Transformation Practitioner Certification. I might be shortening the name next time. It's a bit long. Um, we're going to spend 8 months deep diving into all of the different areas that you would want to master and embody first, but we're doing this in tandem with learning about how we would do this work with our clients. So over the course of the 8 months, you can expect to get to that place of, well, can I hold grief and joy at the same time? Can I be a human experiencing all of my emotions without it overwhelming me, without me judging it? Can I get into some deeper layers of my shadow, of my inner parts? Can I reconnect back into my body at a deeper level? Where does my nervous system need more support? What does it look like for me to connect into my higher self, my soul, whatever you want to, whatever that looks like for you? And then how do I support clients to do that in a way that isn't trying to take them on my journey or push, push or force them? Just in case we ever doubted if these get edited, the answer is no. Um, come and join us. We have an intro call. This is like a meet and greet, but also how are we all going to work together in that space for 8 months in a really lovely, collaborative, safe environment. So that the intro call is on the 30th of April, and then we are going to start the curriculum proper on the 7th of May. And we will meet twice a month for 2 hours for the rest of the year. But don't worry, you'll be finished by mid-December, so you can have a nice Christmas break. Um, yeah, so information again will be in the show notes for the certification. Please come and have a chat with me if you're interested in joining. It's an amazing, amazing group that's coming together so far. Like really, really, like very intelligent, very skilled people, but with this incredible level of awareness of a lot of these things I know, but I'm not embodying them. Like there's a deeper layer of work that I want to do. And they have found that this space, when they've watched the masterclass, that this is the space that they are feeling drawn to. And so if you're in that same place, you're feeling drawn to it, book a call with me, let's have a chat, and maybe we'll welcome you in. All right, my loves, I'm going to leave it there because I have a dog walk to go on. And I will see you next time. Ciao for now.